Hello, everyone. Here I am with another one of our teachers, Lorraine Woodruff Long. Lorraine, wonderful to be here with you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Lorraine Woodruff Long. I'm often known as Quilting in the Fog on my Instagram account and my website. I am a quilter who's lived in San Francisco for many decades. I originally came from Texas, and I have been quilting about 20 years, but got really serious about it about 5 years ago, and definitely after the pandemic.
What was there something that caused you to get serious 5 years ago? Or
Well, I'd been quilting a lot. It was, I always have had a pretty intense job. I was a nonprofit director for a very long time. And it was a lot of, 50, 60-hour work weeks. And it was my way to come home and decompress. Certainly once my kids got grown and didn't need me driving them around, I would come home and do a little bit in the evenings and then really spend all day Saturday and Sunday quilting. But what changed in the pandemic was I lost my job. He was laid off, and at the time thought, well, this will be fun for a few weeks or maybe even a couple months. I'll have a lot of time to quilt. And both my kids had come home, and my husband was working from home, and I'm fortunate in that I sew in the garage, so I wasn't taking up a room, and I could go downstairs and make a big mess and make a lot of quilts. So I started really doing a lot of work then and really producing a lot. And it was also the year I got into the DeYoung Open, which made me realize, oh, okay, somebody selected my work as a work of art, and it sold. And I was able to buy a very used, very old long arm, but just kind of bumped it up for me to go for it a little bit more.
it's interesting because one of the things, and I hadn't prepared you for this question, but one of the things that comes up a lot is whether people call themselves artists or not. And
Yeah.
had you thought of yourself as an artist before the DeYoung?
No, and it's been a real hard thing to get to be honest. I did in after this time, probably the following year, 2021, I got a grant and I got an art consultant. She's kind of like a life coach consultant, kind of helps me guide me in my goals and envisioning what I'm trying to do. And one of the big things she was saying is like, yeah, you're an artist. What? And I still feel like I have to, I'm thinking about it. I definitely am thinking myself that way more and more. Definitely an art quilter. Being involved, being in more gallery shows, participating in more organizations of women artists and other artists has helped.
And
But yeah, it took a while.
yeah, no, I know it does seem like it's a very personal thing with you kind of, it needs to fit, it's like a feeling rather than purely a label.
Well, and also I feel like one of the things I really try to do in my work is I really bristle that quilting and women's work, or this idea of craft, is an art. Like I really bristle at it because it really is, the feminist response in me is like, well, the only reason that people say that and feel that way and have historically talked about it that way is because it was women. And
Yeah.
so I think I'm happy to see that it is an art form. I mean, it's an art form that women have been doing for generations and generations, and I think it's nice to see that it's being recognized. So certainly, organizations like the DeYoung Museum in Golden Gate Park, they picked my piece to be in it along with 12 others in 2020. And this year I was fortunate enough to get in again, and they probably tripled the number of fiber artists. And it's just so exciting for all of us that were there on that opening day and just really wanting to support those fiber artists. So I really commend museums like the DeYoung, who are really giving credence to quilts as art.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting. I was just reading something a few weeks ago about quilts going on the walls, which had been written in the 70s, and they were talking about it as like this kind of crazy idea.
Oh,
A quilt
yeah.
on the wall, whereas now it's not necessarily mainstream, but it's certainly not an exception anymore.
Yeah.
Now, how would you describe your quilting style? Because you've had different bodies of work that, I mean, we've known, I think for I don't know, like 6 or 7 years, maybe from through the
Yeah.
Quilt Guild in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I've noticed your style developing during that time, but how would you describe it?
Well, I divide my work up into three groups. And the first one, I love color. I love using intense color. So I call the first group polychrome. And so it's everything from, the quilt that got into the DeYoung in 2020. It's called the Improv Mosaic. I'm now teaching different versions of that. It's just taking it. I do a lot of improvisational, scrappy things with color. And I started doing a work with silk that's, smaller works, but yeah, so polychrome. The other grouping is, I call it reimagined, but it's repurposed fabrics. I really love, and a big focus of mine right now is just taking clothing or bed linens or men's shirtings and making them into quilts. So repurpose things, and denim. I have a lot from my family's clothing, and I've done a few commissions from people whose loved one has passed away, and they give me a pile of clothing and I make things into it. And then the third grouping I call commentary quilts. And so it really all started, and that's a lot of all my text quilts that have text on them are in that grouping. And it really started in probably 2017, when after the Women's March, and I, participated with my daughter and my husband and really started collecting. I was so enamored of the phrases, the very clever signage that I was seeing on these things. So I was really, collecting these phrases that I saw on signs. And and there was the Women's March, there was the March for Science, there have been, the March for, our lives, and all of them collecting phrases. And so my commentary work has been around the areas of democracy, climate change, and certainly abortion rights. And it was really just a way for me to start kind of processing my feelings. And in some ways, I kind of avoided it for a while, because you spend so much, unlike you post something on Instagram or whatever, and it's gone, you're spending 40 to hundreds of hours working on something and kind of stewing in it. So I had to take a while to find a way to do it that just didn't feel caustic. But the things that I've made has gotten a lot of attention. And so and also it's not some of the things that I do in that category, you don't expect to see on a quilt. So they've gotten a lot of attention, and that's good. It gets people talking, gets people stopping and thinking. And that's what I'm trying to do.
So I know you've had a quilt accepted into QuiltCon, and I'd love to, because what you've just said about how you can kind of work on these things without stewing in that situation. I mean, if you're okay just to describe the quilt, and like, how do you not get
Yeah, and that was a hard one. I had seen a sign at a march, and it said the time or the number of holes that are in this sign are the number that are shot by an assault rifle and the time that it takes to read this. And then there's 42 holes in this sign. And I saw it and I just thought, I have not been able to find out, to who it was attributed to, or, if I haven't seen it anywhere else. I did see it on a photo in San Francisco. And so I thought, wow, you look at this and it just hits you right in the gut. So it was after, I don't even know which one. It was after one of the many mass shootings that, it just seems like it happens. And then we think, oh, how are we going to do this again? It was earlier this year. And I thought, I am going to make that into a quilt. So I, cut out my letters as I do, and as I do in my workshop, and, attach them. And then so it has that phrasing. It's placed on black denim, repurposed denim from my family's jeans. And the letters are all, my clothing and some other things, and cut it out, attach them. And then I sewed, I free motion quilted little circles in red embroidery that are kind of big and messy. And then I cut out 42 holes. I did source it. I did do a sort of a fact check, and there was a major, I don't know, assault rifle publication that indicated that there could be rounds anywhere from 30 to 100 per minute. So I just stuck with what I saw on the sign. But it did get into QuiltCon. It's pretty it packs a punch.
It
So
does. It
be
does. It
interesting
really
to see. I
does.
mean, I have a whole other list of ones that I'll continue to do that will probably have bullet holes in them on this subject. So there's no shortage of things
No,
to say.
no. Especially with an election year coming in the US.
Oh gosh, yeah, I
It's
really wanted to
endless
do a
going.
democracy series, but I'll probably have to do some one-off things. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about your workshop, which of course is about the lettering. But before we
Mhm,
get to that, I'd love to just talk briefly about the social justice quilts that you were
mhm,
involved with as well. Because yeah, I know you talked about making memorial quilts out of people's clothes, which is kind of a different.
mhm, mhm,
But
mhm,
these were kind of memorials for people as well.
mhm,
Do you mind just
mhm.
talking about that a little bit?
About the Social Justice Sewing Academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think early in the pandemic, I had seen their work at shows, and I met somebody who was a volunteer at one of the shows saying, we really need more people. So again, I had a lot of time. So I contacted them and I did a panel of they assign you a person whose life has been cut short by, it's called the Remembrance Project, and volunteers create a panel. It's similar to the AIDS quilt, that many people are familiar with, where you create a panel that is in memoriam to that person. And I did it from a boy called Miles Hall, who actually was killed by police during a psychotic episode that was very badly managed. And they sent me photos of him, and I learned about him, and I ended up making a portrait of him as a little boy, like one of those classic school photos that you see. I think he's probably in kindergarten or first grade, and he had these amazing eyes. So I was trying to replicate those eyes, and I put his name on it, and it's part of a panel that I'm sure they have hundreds by now that are put out in public places. Another thing that I did for them is you can create memorial quilts for family members if they're interested. And there was a boy who was killed by a gun in a place it wasn't supposed to be. And the family sent me his shirt. They had one shirt remaining from him. He'd passed away a few years before. And they sent me photos and told me a little about him. So I included the photos, printed them on the family photos on the fabric, and you cut up his shirt to use in the quilt. And he was really into insects and bugs. So I bought insect and bug fabric and used his color on it and send that to the family.
As again, like how do you not get so
Yeah, I mean,
excited?
it's very sacred. I mean, something like
Yeah.
that, knowing this was the one shirt and I
Mm.
had to use it. I had to use every bit of it. And it's, just knowing that this was going to be such an important thing. And yeah, I just last year did a memorial quilt from a woman whose father had passed away, and she gave me a big pile of things. And so yeah, and that it's just going to be so precious to them. So you want to make sure, first of all, that you just use every little bit that you can, and nothing, you don't want to throw anything away because it feels so sacrilegious. But I love doing those. I would love to do, I'm doing a series right now that I call 7x7, and it's seven quilts made from 7 shirts, to just see all the ways you can kind of, how big and how many ways can I do 7 shirts. And I'd really like to use that as a jumping off point to say, hey, hire me to do your, I'll, to do a commission for you. And I'll do something from your family, or, your loved one, or just a bunch of clothing that you have. But it's very fun to do.
Yes, and I know there's another one, at least one other of our teachers, Shankari, who is also making memorial quilts as well, in the same way
Mhm.
works with the families.
Mhm.
Right, let's get onto your workshop. Let's talk
Sure.
about that. So tell us about what you're going to be doing.
Well, I get asked so often how I'm creating the letters that are in my quilts, and I don't have a die cut. I ordered a bunch of templates that you can get off of Amazon that are plastic, and I have a whole set of letters that I like to use. There's certain template or certain fonts that I like better than others, but I'm just showing how I use fusible to make them, how I then, add another level to it. I basically fuse, do a tracing, cut them out by hand, fuse them again onto another piece of fabric to create like a background that is floating on, cutting out that again, and then attaching it to the fabric. And, it's great for things like, it's fun to do it for things like, happy birthday, or I just did it. And one of the examples in the workshop is dog mom, and, or just, fun words to do. And of course I use them. What I show in the workshop is just a very simple, how I do it using four letters, and I make it into a pillow, and how I, attach them. But for my much more, I have a whole long quote from like Ruth Bader Ginsburg that I don't know how many letters are in it, but it's probably like 36 lines of text. And so I don't go into how I organize and lay that out, but it's kind of basic graphic design techniques, or people who manage text would know how to do. But I also I attach them, I sew them down, and in the workshop I just show how to straight stitch it in a very simple way. But I will be having a Zoom workshop to show how I use free motion quilting to really, 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 really tack it down, especially if it has, a more detailed serif font. I should show a very simple Helvetica font for the workshop. But it kind of gets you going, and people can see how it's done, and then you can get more complicated if you choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how you can use it, like dog mum.
Yeah.
And then have something, or like, Paul or something, have someone's name on
Yeah.
something, or you can use it for like this social justice project.
Yeah.
Or
Saying crazy things. Yeah.
So
I know. Yeah. I just have this. I love notes on my computer, on my phone, because I have like 5 categories of quotes that I collect, and I'm always running across something, and then I just put it in my little thing for future, for future reference. But it's, yeah, there's so many. I could do it all day.
yeah, I understand. And this seems like a good time to ask you, where do all these quotes come from, and where does your inspiration come from? Like, are there quilters or artists or people that you
Yeah, the beginning, it was really from the marches. Like it was from the Women's March. It was from, March for Science, March for Our Lives. I really say this, certainly there's a lot of memes, Instagram, just, seeing things that pop up that capture me. I really try to keep my Instagram feed to be pretty art and quilter and, focused like that. But, I do have a few people that I follow that things pop up that are great. Sometimes as much as the Instagram stuff can be kind of annoying, sometimes, there's a phrase or something that just kind of captures it. And so I, collect those for future reference too. I actually have gotten there's a few people that I've met through Instagram. One of them is a woman who wrote a book, this wonderful Mormon mom who has a book called, her name's Gabrielle Blair, who had a book called Ejaculate Responsibly. And she has, it's this book about, 50 things ways that you need to be rethinking the abortion debate, that we're framing it all about women. And, maybe we should be thinking this a little bit more about what does this mean for men? And, she's a mom of 5, very interesting, but I got permission to use her quotes. I haven't gotten there yet, but I have a whole list of her chapter titles that would be great quilts. And she said, yes, you may use them. And there's a few other people on Instagram that I've asked permission for that I hope to make.
That's a great phrase, really. It should be, yeah, I can imagine that being in schools and so on, or possibly not. Anyway, so talking of books, you've been in a book, you've had your work in a book yourself, and you've exhibited all over the place. Your website has got this huge long list of exhibitions you've been in. How do you get involved in all those different exhibitions and opportunities?
Well, I always say the more you play, the more you win. So I do make a real big effort to, be on lists, be on, newsletters and announcements for such things. A great place that I just started was, SACWA has a great list of calls for entry. There's a website called callforentry.org, and you can go and sign up for free and pick the things that you're interested in, being in. And a lot of them, so I get an email probably at least once a month with a whole bunch of, a lot of them are really junky or things that I would never, that don't fit what I'm doing. But I've gotten some amazing, I've had an opportunity for some amazing shows. The most recent was I'm in this fifth climate assessment that the United States government just put out. And it's it's the definitive report on the climate science for the United States that NASA and NOAA and Smithsonian and all the scientists out there put together. And I found that on call for entry, and I applied, and they selected 80 artists to be in the publication. So things that I would never have found otherwise, pop up in that. And then also once you kind of find, you might find certain galleries that are doing shows that you like, and you make sure that you subscribe to their newsletters and calls for alerts. But a lot of it is just joining different organizations and getting on people's newsletters.
Yeah. And of course, another opportunity that you've grasped and are running with and doing amazing work with is teaching in the community college.
Yes,
well. So what's that been like?
It's been so much fun. And I had this wonderful opportunity. At first, I was teaching locally at a place called Scrap, which is our local reuse and recycle facility. We all love it. It's, you can't go without leaving with a pile of stuff that you promised you're going to use. And so I had been asked by them to teach a few basic quilting classes, which I really enjoyed. And then I got a call earlier this year from City College Extension, City College of San Francisco, the Extension program. And City College had eliminated over the, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, eliminated most of their art class. It's actually been a very painful thing for many of us. I took my first quilting class probably 25 years ago at City College. And so their way of bringing that back, and but to be fair, City College made it free for anybody who's going to get their degree, and they've just changed their focus. But anyway, to be able to do a lot of these community art kind of things and enrichment things, they created a very vibrant City College extension, and they invited me to submit a proposal. So I submitted a proposal that's a 2-part class. That's the first part I call Getting to the Top, and it's 6 classes on it's also called Beginning Improv. So it's Beginning Improv Quilting, Getting to the Top, and I teach probably 8 to 10 different block types that you can make a whole quilt from any one of them, or you can learn that one technique. And I used it to kind of make a medallion quilt to show all the different techniques that we learned in that class. And so that's part 1. And then part 2 is called Finish Line. And that's the part that I feel like I think I remember having to teach myself. It's really, I don't think I ever see classes to learn how to make a quilt sandwich and how to pin it, or classes that are in person. But doing the, quilt sandwich, how to baste it, things you need to know, how to, making choices about your binding and things. But anyway, the goal is to finish your quilt and get it bound, and of course make a label, and also learn how to put a sleeve on it. So that's a 5-part class. And so this is my second semester of teaching it. It's been very popular. They've sold out. Actually, the 2024 spring part 1 class sold out before they even had the catalog made. So I'd love to just keep teaching it as long as I'll have me. It's really fun. I also think it made me realize, oh my gosh, I love teaching. This is so much fun. And definitely in person is just a different experience. It's created a whole new community amongst the quilters that started in this class. And one of the things I'm the most excited about is I got a lot of young folks. It's a lot of 20-somethings and early 30-somethings who are crafty and interested in it. And, there's people who show up who don't know how to use a sewing machine. So this isn't, I'm not trying to have an advanced sewer. I'm really trying to have somebody figure out how to do it where it just always felt so intimidating, and just get techniques. Improv is great because you don't have to be, there's no quilt police or too persnickety about things. It's mostly about, I'm also talking about construction, making sure that whatever you do, it stays together, but you can make it however you want.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And of course, it's a bit of a segue, but this isn't your first time teaching, right? Because you used to be in the Peace Corps, and was
Yeah, I was in the Peace Corps, but I wasn't really a teacher. I mean, I wasn't like when you think of a Peace Corps teacher sitting in front of a classroom teaching kids, but I was kind of a mentor. So I worked with I had a couple projects, but my biggest one was I worked with this women's cooperative that made tie-dye fabric and garments. And I helped them market them to areas like Nairobi. I was in Kenya, to the bigger urban areas to sell their wares. And it was a women in development project with the idea that, helping these women generate income so they can support their families. Because the women were usually the ones, well, women did everything, but they also were the ones providing school fees for their children. And it was a fabulous experience. It was absolutely the best thing I'd ever done up until that time. And it was also fun to be working with like a sewing and a dyeing, nonprofit. I had been a sewist up till that time. I sewed a lot of my clothes growing up, but it was just really wonderful working with women and, helping them improve their lives, helping them have more control over their lives.
It's funny, the Peace Corps is a bit like Thanksgiving to an English person, because the only times you hear about it is in American films. So before I moved here, almost everything I knew about Thanksgiving came from the film Addams Family Values. They went to summer camp, and one of them was a turkey. And everything I knew about the Peace Corps came from the film Airplane.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I'm always fascinated to hear what it's actually like, and because I'm pretty sure it isn't about Tupperware parties.
No, it's not about, yeah, that's true. I actually saw that clip recently and I thought I completely forgot about that. Yeah, no, really, there's a couple of other movies. There's a Tom Hanks movie where he's a Peace Corps volunteer, and it's just, and it came out just as I came back. It can be a really fabulous experience. It can be a really hard experience. It's like a lot of things where it depends on the country you go to and who the leadership happens to be, because, sometimes it could be kind of really awful.
Yeah, sure.
But it was good for me. It was absolutely the hardest thing I ever did. At the time, there was an ad campaign that said, Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love. And it's kind of cliche, but I feel like, yeah, it's really true. It's really true.
That's quite a tagline.
There is a version of, the UK has a version of the Peace Corps, because I worked with people from that, and I can't remember. I want to say it starts with volunteer service. I think it might be VSO.
Oh, voluntary services overseas.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It hadn't occurred to me that was basically the same thing, or very similar anyway.
Yeah, we worked with a lot of them.
Oh, interesting. Okay, no, I hadn't made that connection, but yeah, that seems obvious now. I don't know why I didn't think about that before. Oh, fascinating. So we've talked about a ton of different things. One of the things I'd love to know is, are there quilters who particularly inspire you, or artists who you particularly
Oh, yeah. Wow. Where do you start?
Mm.
I have to say the thing that really got me the first time I remember feeling super excited about quilting was at the De Young in Golden Gate Park, and the Quilts of G's band came. And I just thought, it just rocked my world. And, seeing what these women were doing in in the life that they lived and the situation they did, and they created such beauty. And, and I just feel like it just gave me permission to just cut things up and make it. It was different than what I saw what I thought quilting was. I think I had taken this class at City College at the time. And I got really involved in quilting because I was, I'd go to school auctions and I'd see women who were auctioning off, for fundraisers, quilts, and it always just looked so hard. So I kind of wanted to learn how to do it. But that just really changed everything. And I went home and tried to make something out of that. But it also, sparked my love for chop up the clothing and use that. It's going to be really meaningful. I really love, oh gosh, it's going to be hard to name things, just whittle down to a few because I'll totally forget it. I really love Sean Kimber, her work. And again, her soulful work with words and what she and scraps, and she has so much meaning behind it, and that she's doing it all. You know, she's a professor at a liberal arts college, and she, you know, she does that, and then she does this profound quilting work that's I feel like, you know, changing the world. I recently, or a couple of years ago, I got to go see the Bisa Butler exhibit
Mm.
in Chicago, and you know, again, the African fabrics that she uses and what she does with photography, and you know, and the stories of the black history in the US is really, you know, is really amazing. Oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many, I don't even know where to start. I mean, I have such a huge list of people that I follow on Instagram, because you just want to eat it all up. But
Right.
just,
And
you know, I love those I love the improv. I love, you know, color. You know, Sherry Lynn Wood really got me going on some things. And she had a wonderful residency here at Recology many years ago that was just so exciting to think, yeah, you can just make anything. You know, she did that was so amazing. So, and I also really like Luke Haynes. I like what he's done as and really he's an artist who quilts, and he's done some very interesting things. So I'm really enamored of him. There's so many, I can't even begin. Joe Cunningham, our local Joe Cunningham, of course, and
yes,
fellow teacher.
fellow teacher as well. Yes, I must get hold of him for an interview. In fact, I just realized.
Yes, he's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, there won't be any problem getting him to talk enough. So
yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
So we're coming to an end, and we've talked about how much you've done already.
Mm-hmm.
What does 2024 hold for you?
I really want to teach more. So I would love to travel and teach. I want to be creating more Zoom workshops, and also more online content on demand. You know, continue to teach my local, you know, at local city college. I am teaching at several guilds, my improv mosaic, you know, color workshop, including our own San Francisco Guild in January. So I really want to teach. And I think another thing, I need to manage my time so that I can create more. Because I realized once I got the video done for this workshop, I realized I haven't sat down and really sewn anything since August, which is a really long time. So I have a whole list of things I want to do. I want to complete this 7x7 series of 7 quilts made out of 7 shirts, and have that as a series. I have a very long list of text quilts to make, including, you know, really like to do something on democracy if I can, but yeah, there's no shortage of those things. So I think a lot of it's all for me is going to be time management to create more and definitely teach more.
You need like Yayoi Kusama, I know, has a whole stable of studio assistants that actually draw
yeah.
most of the dots for her.
Oh, that's true. I have to, yeah.
And she comes along and adds the details. So maybe
okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if I could, maybe I should have a workshop that I just have people cut out what I've outlined, and we can make a collective statement quilt. I think that might be an idea.
There's a whole
I just thought of that. That's a great idea. I have to figure out what's going to be the long commentary we all cut out. Yeah.
That's some sort of the young residency right there. So yeah.
Oh, I would like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Well, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so excited that you got me going on my virtual teaching adventure for the first time. And I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope to do more. So I'm very excited by what you've started here. I'm really proud of you too for just taking the bull by the horns and doing Quilt 2024. It's like the stamp of quilting in 2024.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, that's definitely what it is going to be. And it's going to be, yes, fantastic event. All right. Well, Lorraine, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Bye, Alex.